Well, hello everybody, and a very warm welcome to the session today. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar, Perfect Your Survey Rhythm, How to Find Your Survey Sweet Spot. My name's Kate Pritchard. I head up the consultancy team at People Insight, and I'll be chairing the session. And just while we allow other people to join, let's start with a little bit of housekeeping. So we just want to make sure that you get the most out of the session. So the first thing I wanted to share was to let you know that following this session, we will be providing you with a recording. So you can listen back to this if you wish, and we can provide the slides on request if you'd like the slides as well. So that will be coming your way following the session. We also wanted to let you know that if there's anything that we speak about during the session today, we'd be delighted to have a further conversation with you. So my colleague Ryan in the background is going to post a link within the chat, and that will enable you to book a meeting directly with us to talk in more detail about anything that we discussed today. And really want this to be an interactive session. So you have the chat function, you have emojis, so please do use that. We'd love to hear from you. There will be a Q&A session today, so ask any questions in the chat and we will get to you. And actually, just to try it out now, as we let the remaining participants in, how about we start to use the chat? And we have a quick question for you. We'd love to know how often you're currently surveying your workforce. So I'm sure across everybody who's joined today, there'll be a huge range of responses, but please just use the chat to write in what you're currently doing, whether that's once a year, once every few years, or far more frequently. We'd just love to get a sense of how you're all doing. Thank you for starting to do that already. That's fantastic. Okay, right. Well, let's get on with the agenda for today. I'm delighted that we have Carla Lakey, Head of People from LCP, joining us for the session today. LCP have been a valued client since 2019, and they've got a fantastic story to tell in terms of what they've been doing in terms of employee listening activity. So really looking forward to hearing from Carla in a moment. Before that, I will just do a quick introduction, introduce you a little bit to People Insight, and also really to sort of introduce this broad topic before I hand over to Carla. And as I mentioned, we will be doing a Q&A session as well. Okay, so just a quick introduction to People Insight for the benefit of those who don't know us. We're a specialist employee research provider, and our mission is to be the most actionable employee experience platform powered by people. And we achieve this by three main channels: our platform, our people, and our commitment to action. So starting with our platform, this is really an all-in-one hub for data, insights, and action. It really enables you to run surveys and to get the best out of them. The dashboard that we provide is intuitive. It provides you with key information, and it uses the latest generative AI to ensure that you have key insights at your fingertips. The other really important part of our proposition is our people. So we are experts in the field of employee research. We have a client services team that work with you to ensure that when you conduct surveys, we can provide support at all stages to make sure that you get the most out of your survey programme. And we have a team of consultants who support you in terms of really delving into your survey results, providing expert interpretation and support with action plans. And then we have a comms team who can support you with survey communications across all aspects of your survey programme. And then in terms of action, we have a really well-established framework to support our clients to get the most from their survey data and to help to develop realistic actions to really support you to improve the employee experience. We're delighted to work with a wide range of organisations and to work with clients across all industry sectors and of varying sizes. And when we work with our clients, one of the discussions that we have very frequently is how frequently should we be surveying? Is an annual engagement survey still relevant? Or is it all about pulses now? And if it is all about pulses, how frequently should we be doing them? And of course, there is no one approach that works for every organisation. So you do really need to find a rhythm that works for you. Many of our clients are still running full engagement surveys. often on an annual basis or perhaps every couple of years. And there are still huge benefits to doing this. Typically, when you're doing an engagement survey, we're covering a wide range of topics. The information from an engagement survey provides you with really detailed data. It enables you to look at trends across your organisation, to look at how your results are changing over time, how you're comparing with similar organisations, and having that really rich information from a wide range of employees in order to take action. Pulse surveys are typically shorter and more frequent. So where we might be asking, say, 40 or 50 questions in a full engagement survey, a pulse survey might just be 10 or 20. So we're really honing in on a particular topic of interest. It might be that you're looking at specific areas where you've taken action as a result of your engagement survey, or it might be a particular hot topic, a topic of importance to your organisation today. But pulse surveys really ensure that you can get that real-time information. You get a real feel for how employees are feeling right now, and you can take relevant action. However, the downside of pulses can be that it leads to a risk of survey fatigue. If there's a lot of pulses going on, employees do get tired, particularly if they feel that their results are not leading to action. There's also a potential risk that there's data overload and that the cycle becomes all about the survey process rather than about what you're doing with that data. So it's really important to really think about what is going to work for you, and particularly how quickly you can use the feedback to drive improvements. People want to know that their views are being listened to and that they're going to be used to drive improvements within your organisation. So think about what changes you can make and how you can demonstrate that you're using the survey to drive action before you ask again. It's also important to think about your own organisational context. If you're going through a period of high growth or significant change, then regular feedback might be particularly important. And also think about your survey audience. So how easy is it for your staff to complete a survey? In some organisations, it's much easier than others. Are you asking everybody for their opinion each time you run a survey, or are you segmenting into different groups? These types of factors will obviously inform the right rhythm for you in terms of surveys. So there is a lot to think about, and nothing beats hearing from an organisation that's done a lot of thinking already and has worked hard to find a cadence that is right for them. So I'm so delighted that we have Carla Lakey, Head of People at LCP, with us today. And Carla has a really great story to tell. We've been working with LCP since 2019. And you can see here some of the sort of headlines from the work that Carla's done. But I think the fact that LCP won Outstanding Workplace Awards in 2022 and 2024 really demonstrates the success for employee listening. So Carla, welcome. Thank you for joining us today, and over to you.
That's great. Thanks, Kate, and good afternoon, everybody. Really pleased to be here sharing our journey on our employee engagement so far. I have been kind of in the role and actually working on the employee engagement kind of survey and strategy for since 2019, and it really has gone from strength to strength. But I think probably before we dive into what we're doing, it's probably helpful for me to just spend a few minutes just talking about who Lane Clark and Peacock, or LCP as we're better known, actually are. So we are a tech-based or tech-enabled consultancy who work in a wide variety of industries, from pensions and financial services, energy, health, and analytics. We are actually structured as a partnership, and we have around 200 partners, so about 1,200 people in total at the moment, but we've seen quite large growth over recent years. We are primarily based in the UK, but we do have smaller satellite offices in Paris and also in Ireland as well. Now, in terms of the type of people we employ, we have exceptionally bright people working for us who have a thirst for numbers, analysis and knowledge, and because of the industries that we work in, are very much a passion for what they do. So generally speaking, we do have a highly engaged workforce more generally. In terms of the building blocks of our success, I think it's really underpinned by kind of four key factors. Our vision, which is something that we have been working on more recently because of our growth and the diversification of our business, our vision around powering possibility. It's that articulation of how we want the outside world to see us. And it describes the goal both from internal and external sides of LCP. And the purpose which sits alongside that really just explains what we do, why we exist, and really acts for us as a guiding principle on strategy. You know, it's all about shaping a more positive future in the areas that we work in. Now, you know, for many years, our culture has been something that's been incredibly important to us, and it has been genuinely a key driver for our success. And what we found as we've grown is it's been harder to articulate succinctly for those new people coming in what values and what qualities we really admire and value and want to see in people. So more recently, we've done quite a lot of work on our values, and I'll come to that a little bit later in terms of our survey kind of questions around it. But actually, our 4 values are very kind of dear to all of our hearts, both in the people team and more broadly right across the business. But I think the bit that's really relevant for us when we're talking about employee engagement and the strategies that we use in this area is our underlying ethos, which we call LCP Cares. Now, Cares originally started life as an acronym that meant clients always receive exceptional service. And very quickly, that clients moved into clients, colleagues, and communities always receive exceptional service. So for us, it's about doing those little big things and really going above and beyond, both for our clients, but also for the people that work within the business. At our heart, we are really a people business. What we're selling is our people's expertise, and without them and their amazing efforts, we wouldn't have a business. So it's really important that we are in tune with how people are feeling, what their wants and needs are. In order for us to be able to move forward and grow as a business, we need to be able to attract and retain really high quality staff. So for us, it's really about managing and maintaining what we call our virtuous circle, which in a nutshell is that if we can bring people into the business and keep them happy, they will deliver great work for clients. Those clients being happy mean that we have a happy business, and happy people, happy clients, happy business mean that we can recruit more happy people, hopefully, and so on and so on. So I think from a practical perspective, it's really important for us that we are listening to our people. And even before we have the concept of engagement surveys, actually having an open door policy of people being encouraged to provide feedback, or if they had ideas, you know, just sharing them. It didn't matter where they were in the business, whether they were junior or senior, there was very little hierarchy. We just want, you know, people to provide feedback. And whilst we are bigger now and we have to have kind of more structure around things, we still want that sentiment to be first and foremost in people's minds. And then on a practical perspective, why we want an engagement survey, from my perspective, actually, it really helps me with deciding what our people priorities for future years are going to be. So, for example, if we have to make decisions around perhaps benefit improvements or things we might want to be doing around packages, actually, we can take our kind of feedback from the survey and what our people are telling us. And actually, that's had really positive impact in some of the changes that we've made over recent years. So as Kate said, our journey started with People Insight in 2019. And prior to that, we essentially did do surveys, typically every 3 years, but they were managed by the HR team internally through spreadsheets. It typically involved an email going out with a link to fill in a little survey and maybe a chaser email following it up, but it was very much without much fanfare. And so looking back, actually getting a 70% response rate back in those days was actually probably quite good, but we actually wanted to see more as we started growing and started kind of feeling like we needed more robust data. So by the time it got to 2019, we had around just under 700 people in the business. And we felt that we were at that point in time where we wanted to really benchmark ourselves against kind of where everybody else was and what our competitors were looking like. You know, we felt we had really good employee engagement, but actually we really wanted to test that. And what we were increasingly seeing were in client tender proposals, for example, we were getting more questions around culture and engagement. And we felt that it would be really helpful to be able to provide some statistics to be able to demonstrate, you know, we really were doing what we said we were doing. So 2019, as I say, we joined up with People Insight and we did our first survey. Our survey is called LCP Voice because we genuinely really want people's voices to be heard. And we had a fantastic response to that first survey with nearly 80% response rate. We really weren't sure what level of engagement we were going to get. So we were absolutely thrilled when our score came back with an 87% engagement score. It really kind of resonated with us, and so it made us feel that actually what we were doing was in the right direction. And at that time, when we started in 2019, our general kind of feeling was that we would continue to run a full engagement survey every 3 years, but that we were toying with the idea of actually putting a pulse survey in about 18 months in. Now, of course, the world changed come early 2020, and that threw everything on its head. So very soon into lockdown, we actually decided that we were going to do a pulse survey to just check in on people and make sure, kind of from a wellbeing perspective, that people were okay. And so we actually did a pulse-ish survey fairly over on. We had good engagement with that survey, but then over the period, kind of the coming months, as we maintained ourselves in lockdown and we're dealing with returning to work and kind of more bouts of COVID, we actually felt we were doing lots of surveys kind of internally, time and time again, just to really decide what our approach was going to be on return to work. And we felt that we probably reached that point of survey fatigue. And so ultimately what we decided was that we were going to just wait until 2022 and conduct a full engagement survey then. And for us, that was a really kind of key point, because as you can see probably from the numbers, by 2022, we were nearly at 1,000 people. We had grown quite significantly over that period, both through organic growth in our own kind of core business areas, but also because we had started to diversify into different business areas, in particular energy and health. And actually that did involve a small acquisition as well, which meant we had some extra people coming in where we needed to align two different cultures. So going into the 2022 survey, again, we really weren't quite sure where our engagement score was going to land. You know, we had kind of come back, we were testing hybrid working policies. So when we actually did get that result of 87% engagement, again, we were absolutely delighted, because it made us feel that we had, you know, we had been doing the right things, we had been listening well, and what we had done was very much led by what our people needed from us at that time. Off the back of the 2022 survey, obviously there's always things that you can do to improve. It was, you know, the survey was really rich in terms of both comments, but also just in signalling perhaps where we could make an improvement. And we actually embarked on a number of new initiatives to kind of push areas of improvement forward. So we decided at the end of 2023 that what we wanted to do was another check-in survey, actually focused on those areas where we had been working on initiatives, just to see how well they were landing. And actually what we can see over time is that we managed to push our response rate up even further. So our most recent survey, we had an 88% engagement score and an 88% response rate, which I think is testament to the fact that people really do have trust and confidence in the survey itself, and that action will be taken. But I think there's a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes to really make sure that we are banging that drum and keeping people engaged with the survey. So for us, it's all about communication throughout the year. So I thought it would perhaps be a little bit helpful to just talk through the various aspects of our communication plan and how they all fall together to kind of keep LCP Voice Survey as something that is in people's awareness and consciousness. So throughout the year and prior to launching the survey, we ensure that we're talking about the voice survey, and that starts right from day one. When somebody joins the business as part of their induction process, they will have a section on the voice survey. There'll be shared results from the most recent survey, and also the actions we've been taking since those survey to demonstrate that you said we did mentality. And we actually do that with any initiative that we've got coming up. So if we've changed a benefit, if we've launched a new training program, for example, we'll always refer back to that. You told us this in the survey and we have done this as a result. We also make sure that it looks like it's something that's not just coming from the people team. It's not just relevant to the people team. It's relevant and important to the whole of senior leadership. And we do that in a couple of ways. Firstly, we always have an annual strategy presentation. And at that presentation, we always remind people of the results and the actions that we've been taking as a consequence of those results. And we regularly have what we call exco videos, typically monthly, and we ensure that it's not just me in those exco videos talking about our employee engagement results. Our other kind of executive members will also link things that they're doing and think more strategic areas back to the employee engagement survey to show that it's really got commitment from right across the board at senior level. We also, I'm sure like many of you, have TV screens across our offices. So we, from time to time, just drop bits of information in relation to engagement onto the reels that go in on our kind of in the office day to day, so that people can are just there. It's in the background. It's in just humming along in the background for people. Then as we get into a kind of ramping up towards a survey, we really start dialing the notch up a little bit further on communications. So one of the things that works really effectively for us all year round with all manner of things is using internal TV lock screens. So people's laptops, when they log on, they'll have reminders about different things that are going on. So in the run up to a survey, we'll be reminding people that the survey is available and how long they've got to complete it and why it's important. We also do a bit of a reminder about all of the things that you told us last time and where we've got to in terms of progress on those. And one of the things we know for our people is really important. They have a great passion for the work that we do through the LCP Foundation, which kind of responds and donates to various different charities. So what we do is we tell people that actually for every response they make to the voice engagement survey, we will donate an additional £3 to the foundation, and that raises an additional few £1,000s every year. Now, I think from my perspective, one of the really, really crucial things that has a great impact is what we call our people leader cascade. So from my perspective, starting at the top, I kind of communicate with all of the heads of department and the people leaders right across the business, and they are all primed and ready around the engagement survey. So they will start cascading out reminders to teams that will go right down to very kind of weekly team leader meetings, where they'll be reminding people not to, don't forget to fill out the survey and why it's really important. And to add a little bit of healthy competition, because we know our folks like a little bit of competition, we do share kind of response rates by department as the survey portal is open, or the portal is open, so that they can compete against each other to see who can get closest to 100% response rates, and so that really does work well for us. Of course, the exciting bit normally comes when we get to the survey results, and it's always a really great time for the people team to actually kind of see the results and read people's feedback. The comments are always so rich in information, and it takes quite a while to read through them, but it's always kind of a really, really useful exercise. But once the people team have actually looked at the results, very, very quickly, we go out to the whole firm with an animated video summarising key parts of the results. And we also share a slide deck which has got the results to every single question, so that everybody can see the results for everything. We also make brilliant use of the dashboard that People Insight provide. As a people team, we have access to that, as do all of our department heads and people leaders, and they really do love getting into the detail and cutting and slicing the results for their department, so that they can really see what the key issues for their departments are. At a central level, we'll be pulling out key themes and identifying what firm-wide initiatives we might need to be taking, or what action might need to be taken. But the departments are then kind of left to their own devices in terms of thinking about how they can really impact based on the results that they've received to their department. We also support that with intranet comms, just giving a bit more flavour to some of the themes coming out of the results and what the next steps will be. And then once the departments have actually got a handle on their results, every single department will run a forum with their teams just to talk through their departmental results. And actually that forum is a really great way to add kind of more information and get kind of more background to perhaps some of the responses, and just to understand where questions and results have come in on. And I think that kind of process of people actually being a trigger to have a conversation about some of these things is really helpful and really beneficial. So that's what we do in terms of communication. It's hard work, but I think it really does have kind of big impact. In terms of our survey cycle itself, I think we have been on a bit of a journey, as we sort of said at the beginning. Originally we were doing 3-year full surveys. And actually what we've done, and as Kate referenced quite early in the session, we've really thought quite long and hard about what works for us and our people. We know that a lot of other companies do multiple surveys at kind of each year. Actually, we feel that that's not for us. When we think about the types of initiatives and actions that we take, very often while there might be some small fixes, very often they're kind of initiatives that take quite a bit of time to get off the ground and actually truly implement. And so for us and our people, what we found is that whilst people are already engaged when we say things are coming, actually people really do want to see the impact of those initiatives before we really see the results coming through. And so for us, we feel that actually running our full survey, which has about 45 questions in it currently, once every 3 years, with an annual check-in survey is probably the right place for us. And our focus on check-in surveys, kind of based on what we've been doing so far, is to really focus on the questions that were the ones that were related to where we knew we'd been working on areas and had made change, because we wanted to see whether that change had landed in the way that we wanted to. So I think for us, we pared back our check-in surveys. They use exactly the same. They use a selection of questions from the main survey so that we can track a genuine kind of response and trend rate. We found that actually having one text box on the check-in survey was really helpful, because it's a really open-ended question. We ask people, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your experience of working at LCP? So that people can see, if they haven't kind of had a question to answer about a particular topic they've got something to say about, they've got an opportunity to do that. And that worked really well for us this year, and I think we'll continue to do that going forward. So our plan for this year is to continue with that check-in survey. I thought it would be perhaps just helpful to sort of like show what the impact of doing our first check-in survey was, and how beneficial it was from our perspective in kind of seeing how things had gone. So back in 2022, when we took our results, there were a few key areas where for us we felt we needed to make improvement. We had not long refreshed our vision, our purpose and our values to better reflect the business that we had become over recent years, with a more diversified strategy working in various new sectors. And the results from our 2022 survey demonstrated that actually that meant that some people didn't really have kind of a great knowledge of kind of the overall business strategy, or perhaps their own department's business strategy, and the career opportunities that potentially were going to be available to them in the future. And so we did a lot of work, getting out at senior level, getting out with each of the departments to really talk to people about the strategies for their departments, what that meant in terms of career development, how everything pieced together and how the jigsaw pieced together for the kind of the vision for the whole firm. And we therefore really wanted to test actually had that done its job and had that landed as we had hoped. And if you look on the slide, you can see the 3 areas that are kind of highlighted in pinky red: purpose, leadership and values. You can see that the work we did on all of that really demonstrated a positive shift in kind of the results, and we really increased our engagement in those areas, which was exactly what we wanted to see. It was also great to see that there were other areas where we kind of pushed the dial forward, and actually those were all in things where, when we look back at it, we had done some stuff in those areas as well and had an impact. So, for example, under empowerment, one of the questions was around LCP looking after the health and well-being of the individuals at work. And actually, one of the things we had introduced kind of during that period was PMI for everybody. Again, based on feedback from a previous survey, but it just really demonstrated that people really valued that benefit and that change we had introduced. So I think from our perspective, it really helped us demonstrate that what we were doing was moving us in the right direction. And I think we will continue to test it going forward, because there's still more to do in some of those areas. But for us, it was a really helpful process to go through. So in terms of what's next for us, as I say, we've got our 2024 check-in survey. We typically do our survey at the end of the year, so we're starting to prep for that now. That's going to help us define our people priorities for next year. And of course, we're keeping our fingers crossed that we might get an Outstanding Workplace Award next year. Never take it for granted, but we very much hope that we're still in that position. And then once we've done that survey, we will start thinking about actually our full survey and whether we want to introduce any new topics or questions for that survey into the cycle. So hopefully that demonstrates kind of the journey that we've been on. It does take time and it does take dedication, but I think it's been really beneficial for us as an organisation. Hand back over to you, Kate.
Oh, thank you so much, Carla. Such a brilliant story. So good to hear. And you've shared so many insights there. So thank you very, very much for your time.
No worries.
So you have allowed plenty of time for questions. We did ask for questions in advance, and we will respond to those in a moment. But one has already come in from Amy. So it's probably worth me posing that to you first, if that's all right, because it's related to the last slide you showed, actually. And Amy's asking if you find that you see data differences between the main and pulse surveys, given the questions are asked in different contexts. So there's not as many questions, perhaps in different groupings. Have you noticed that that has an impact at all?
So I think what we tried to do was keep the grouping and the question wording exactly the same between the full survey and the pulse survey. But I think one of the things that we did notice on a couple of questions was where perhaps we only had one question in a particular subsection, when we kind of dug into the answers and perhaps the reason why there had been some movements, actually it was because people were using it as a proxy for the question that was missing sometimes, or had slightly kind of taken it to have a slightly wider meaning. So I definitely think that's a learning for us going forward around making sure we're clear on exactly what we're testing on those kind of when we've got a shortened set questions.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, being very specific about the questions. But no, really good question, and thank you for that, Carla. So if anything else is springing to your mind as you've been listening to Carla, please do use the chat. It's probably easiest if you can type it into the chat, and we will come to those questions. But let's start with some that have already come through. So yeah, one question we often get is around survey fatigue. Is that a risk on pulse surveys? I would say it absolutely is. You know, for some organisations, there is a real desire to survey on a very regular basis. And while that can provide such helpful and useful information, we do find that if staff aren't feeling that the results are being listened to and acted on, that can absolutely lead to survey fatigue. I think, Carla, you've spoken at length really around the communication and the fact that the communication you do is not just sort of topping and tailing the survey, it is continuous.
Yeah,
I think that is so powerful, just in terms of keeping it absolutely front and centre. Is there any sort of anything specific you'd like to add just in terms of guarding against survey fatigue? Because I think this is a big topic for people.
I think I agree completely. We have lots of different surveys going on throughout the year, and that might be full firm or it might be just departmental. So for us, you know, deciding physically when to do the survey in the calendar based on busy parts of the busy times for the business, but also what other surveys were going on. And actually one of the things that we do is we centrally ask people to communicate with us if they want to do a survey, and actually we'll have a bit of a plan, and we will make sure that we'll say now's not a good time to do that survey. We've got the engagement survey coming up. It's really important we get the results from that one. Perhaps hold off 6 months and do your one then, you know, and we have that kind of open conversation that we know it's all important, but let's just decide which one should take priority when. I do agree. We had feedback around survey fatigue, which is why we don't want to do lots and lots of
And it's great that you are able to sort of control the number of surveys happening, because I think it can get a bit tricky if lots of managers want to survey at the same time. Yeah, okay, that's great, thank you. How should we pitch the value of pulse surveys to our senior leadership? And I suppose that's relevant to what you just said there, that I suppose every manager thinks their pulse survey is very, very important.
Absolutely. I think it's about trying to kind of weave the jigsaw puzzle and the picture together to demonstrate how it all fits and how different things will move from each other. You know, we're very lucky that actually our senior leadership are very on board with understanding where our people are at, both in terms of, you know, the positive things and the things that we could do to improve. Because we are a people business and we are a service business, it's really important that we have happy people, and therefore we are very attuned to just kind of even changes in mood and sentiment, just to kind of, you know, even outside of the regular cycle. It's something we keep an eye on all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, well, it does sound like your senior team are very open to surveys and see the value of those. I guess for some organisations there might be more of a job in terms of really promoting the value of surveys. And, you know, I would say that, you know, it is always so useful to get that feedback. It's always best to know and to have that evidence rather than just sort of hearsay. So absolutely there is value, but make sure that you are not over surveying and you are sort of making a commitment not only to hearing from employees, but then using that data positively so that you are able to take action as a result of that feedback.
I think sorry, just to interrupt, Kate, I think from our perspective as well, actually, there's a real commercial reason for it. Now, I appreciate that background won't be there for every industry, but actually, because we have other businesses asking us questions about our engagement and our level of culture and employee engagement is really important to them in their hiring decisions of us, there's a commercial imperative that we demonstrate that we have got a great culture and really good engagement as well.
Yes, and that feedback culture. Brilliant. Yeah, very good point. Oh, questions are flying in now, so thank you everybody for contributing. One question here: what were your main challenges with regard to engagement? Did you offer different platforms for employees to use to complete the survey?
So for us, we're all office-based or laptop-based, so everybody can actually answer kind of queries on or answer the survey on a laptop. They can do it from mobile phones as well, and we just found that the combination of being able to click on a link and either, you know, answer the survey on their phone or via their laptop was sufficient to get that level of engagement. It really for us, getting response rates in is really about at team leader level, them seeing the value of the survey and chivying everybody along and saying it's really important. You know, we want the results to be representative of the firm, and we can't do that. We have a message from our CEO explaining why he wants to hear the results and how important it is as well. You know, so I think it's demonstrating there's value in it for them.
Yes, a related question is about whether you offer incentives. So it sounds like it's more of a discussion about how important it is than offering specific incentives. Is that right?
Yeah. That's completely right. Apart from the donation to the foundation, we offer the £3 donation to the foundation. So it's not a personal incentive, but it's an incentive to do something that's going to help somebody else. And that sort of fits with the mindset and the ethos that we have more generally. And most of our employees are on board with that too.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'd say that is fairly typical actually for many of our clients. There's a charity donation for responses, which works really well. Other of our clients have tried things like free cups of coffee or chocolate bars. I discussed with a client this morning to support response rate. But I think the most important thing is just that real commitment to using the survey results to really drive improvements. And in relation to the last question, actually, just in terms of different methods for people to fill in the survey, where you don't have everybody with easy email access and laptop access, QR codes can be a really helpful way just to allow people to use their smartphones to sort of find the QR code and complete the survey directly from that as well. Okay, I think we've got a few other questions here. So someone's asked, our team has a very diverse range of employees. So can we segment survey data by demographics, and does this compromise anonymity? And this actually relates to a question that's come in about reassuring employees of confidentiality of their survey answers. So typically an employee survey is absolutely confidential and anonymous, and we'll work with clients to sort of agree the minimum reporting threshold. So we'll obviously make a commitment and stick to that. It tends to be 10 or 5 that we won't break the data down below, and our reporting dashboard ensures that that commitment stays in place. But Carla, tell us what you do at LCP.
So absolutely, obviously confidentiality is important. It's in terms of the communications right out front. Actually, one of the things that we do is make sure that it's really, really clear in the introduction to the survey around the confidentiality, and that, you know, there's only a small subset of people in the business that will actually see overall results. So that does help. What we do in terms of the dashboards is we actually have different permissions rights for different parts of the business. So the central people team, or the people that are looking more closely at the dashboard, have full access to be able to cut and slice the data, you know, within the bounds that the dashboard will allow from a kind of numbers perspective. But what we actually typically do for our departments is don't often necessarily give them all of the DEI filters, so they can't necessarily filter on everything that we can at a central level, we will look at it at a central level. And if we think that there's an area that perhaps we need to discuss with the department, we will do, but we just don't give them the same overall permission and access, which again helps with the confidentiality aspect. But I think I can see kind of an extra slide come up. One of the ways that we look at segmenting is not just in relation to DEI metrics, but actually in a whole variety of other ways. And the one up on the screen is really a length of service, and this for us is quite interesting, actually looking at that segmentation from a length of service category perspective. And what you can actually see is it's almost a bit like a little hockey stick. We have really great engagement for people that have been in the business for less than a year, and then it dipped off slightly and then comes back up again. And so for us, that's really about, and that was a trend that we saw across the business. So for us, that was trying to work out, well, why is that happening? What's causing that? And I think some of it was due to the honeymoon period of someone joining the business, having really close contact with a buddy as they were kind of being inducted in and making sure that they were finding their feet okay. And then perhaps actually that level of comfort just disappeared for a little bit before people got really settled. And actually the rate of 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, that 1 to 2 years rate was actually the rate that we were seeing a bit more churn within the business as well. So there was that kind of cause and effect, and actually trying to work out, well, what can we be doing better in this area? So I think being able to slice the data in different ways is really, really valuable, because it can bring out some quite interesting insights.
Absolutely, yes. And while this length of service pattern shows you that there is that little dip, it's not unusual, and also no, even
it's still quite high.
Even at the 1 to 2, 81% is still a good engagement score. So yeah, things are good, but absolutely it provides so much helpful insight just to see that. And obviously the dashboard enables you to do that for whatever protected characteristics and other demographics that you'd like to as well. I've just noticed another question in the chat, Carla, that sort of relates to what you were speaking about, around how you gauge staff sentiments or address issues that come up prior to the check-ins. It feels like you cannot address issues in real time. So
we try to have quite close bonds between our team leaders and actually within our people leader cascade as well. So I will be having regular check-ins with, as a collective group, all of our people leaders, and we use those to talk about what's going on, what our team leaders are reporting, are there any issues. Our people are quite good at, telling us if they're not happy about stuff. So we generally have a good feel for what's going on. So I think what happens is that when we do get the survey results in, really quite often they're often just confirming what we already know, rather than it being a surprise. I don't think kind of in the years that we've run it thus far, I've ever been surprised by some of the comments that have come in, or by kind of where the results are perhaps lower than others. We already have that feeling, and it's really just confirmation of that. So very often we're already working on initiatives or have it front and center of the things that we're working on. And it really just kind of helps us demonstrate that actually, there is nothing missing. Occasionally there'll be something, but generally speaking, we normally have a good feel for what we're going to see coming up in the survey in terms of commentary and areas of, that are slightly lower than others.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Carla. I think there's just a couple more questions. So any tips on action planning post-survey, how to encourage that culture of feedback ownership by people managers? So yeah, this is a really important area. And I'll answer first to give you a moment, Carla. You've been doing a lot of talking. But yes, this is an area that is so important, that you're using the survey to drive improvement. I mentioned at the beginning of the session that we do have our sort of action framework really to guide managers to get from all of the useful data that comes back from the survey and going through a process of turning that into tangible actions. I think one thing I would say is, a prerequisite is absolutely there does need to be commitment from the top to using the data to drive improvement, but there also needs to be clarity as to how it's going to work, so that people are really clear of their responsibilities at the outset, that managers know that if they've got their report, that there is an expectation that they'll take action, and what the sort of guidance is around that. So for many of our clients, there's a sort of decision that all managers make 3 changes or focus on 3 areas. For some clients, it's just do one thing, every manager to do one thing to improve the employee experience. So to have a sort of real commitment, but also that clarity is important. And then it's about involving people, so making sure it's a collaborative process, that it's not managers doing this by themselves, but involving people throughout the organisation to come up with actions and to regularly communicate what is doing and the progress you're making. Anything to add, Carla?
No, I completely agree, Kate. I think for us, once the survey results are out, someone from the central people team will have a meeting with that department head or that people leader, and they'll talk through the results and think about what actions might be there. And then again, probably about 6 months later, someone will just check in with them and say, how is progress on this? Have things moved forward? What have you done? So that we don't get round all the way to kind of 1 year later and actually nothing's been really done about it. We also use our kind of quarterly forums as people leaders to share experience of things that people have done in one department, which may be helpful for another department, and that opportunity to kind of talk about best practice and where they're having challenges or maybe don't quite know how to action something, and using that kind of feedback loop between the people managers works really well too.
Excellent. Yep. Good. Okay. Another question. Which questions do we pick for pulse surveys? Very good. Well, yes. I mean, this again is very sort of personal to individual organisations. And I think, Carla, you mentioned it was based on the areas where you're going to focus, or you have been focusing action from the main engagement survey. And I'd say that that's pretty typical, although obviously for some pulse surveys, it's on a specific topic of interest. But yeah, it could be areas of strength. It tends to be really areas of most important areas where you're aiming, or within that you're already taking action to really measure the impact of the activities that you're already progressing. You got anything more? You ever asked for wider employee feedback on actions? Yeah, so that's a good question. So in terms of the actions as they're happening, again, this should be a collaborative thing, that there's communication on a very regular basis in terms of the actions that are happening and the impact that they're having on the employee experience. So I guess that's happening all the time, really. Carla, is that right for you in terms of all the communications you're doing?
We don't ever survey with a kind of a specific question on, do you think the actions demonstratively listened or kind of have had impact? But what we do find is that in the kind of the open text comments in the question following the prior year, people will say, we really like this initiative that was rolled out, or we really appreciated that this benefit was changed. We can see you listened. So we get some sort of like anecdotal feedback that way. Generally as a firm, if whenever we're running a training session or doing something new that we've not done before, we will always seek feedback. So for example, we've got a couple of different initiatives at the moment relating to rolling out different learning and development opportunities. And what we'll do is if we've done something new or we've done something in a different way, we will seek feedback on how did that go, what did people think about it, and we'll make tweaks and adjust accordingly. So we try to get some real-time feedback in that way when we are taking an action. So if it hasn't quite planned or hasn't had the impact, we typically know about it reasonably quickly after.
Yeah. And it is helpful in sort of subsequent surveys to ask people if they've seen actions as a result of the last survey, and maybe to sort of share what they've seen, because that provides really good information in terms of the actions that have had the most impact, and perhaps tells you those that people aren't sort of connecting to the survey, or they're not really seeing the progress you'd maybe hope that they can. Okay, well, look, thanks everybody for asking questions, and a big thank you again, Carla, for a fantastic presentation and sharing everything that you're doing at LCP. That's really good. But just in terms of wrapping up, we just wanted to remind you that at People Insight, we run regular webinars, and we also have a lot of case studies that we'd love to share with you. They are all on our website, but if you use this QR code, it will take you directly to those to have a look at those. Webinars are really important to us, and we have a couple coming up really soon. So we've got Manchester Metropolitan University at the beginning of October, talking about how to champion the colleague voice with MMU, and they actually also won Outstanding Workplace Award recently. So they've also got a fantastic story that's probably geared more to the HEI sector, but everybody is welcome to attend. I think it is really useful to hear from them. And then we've got a webinar on the state of AI in HR, trends and best practices, right at the end of October. So you can register for either of these webinars on our website as well. So just to finish, really providing you with a little bit of information as to what we're up to at People Insight. As many of you know, we're always looking to improve the way we work and our offer to you. And the focus over the recent months has been around Prism and our employee lifecycle offer. So we now have a really good survey package, Moments That Matter, enabling you to seamlessly survey people across the employee lifecycle and integrate your HRIS system straight into our platform, which is fantastic. And Prism is a very exciting tech update that we've recently launched, and that's really an AI-powered solution for HR analytics, enabling you to use generative AI to support results interpretation and action. So a really, really powerful assistant to support you in your results interpretation and coming up with actions to support improvements to the employee experience. So we'd be delighted to provide you with a demo to talk to you more about these really exciting updates. Just let us know. And I think if there's anything that we can do to support you, we'd love to have a conversation. So you can use the QR code here. I think Ryan also posted something in the chat. You've got our email addresses. We'd love to hear from you and to have a conversation. But I just really want to now say thank you so much to Carla for her time today, and to all of you for attending. We really do appreciate it. We mentioned earlier that we work to support our clients get a good response rate from their surveys, and we've actually got a partnership with Eden Reforestation. So we will be planting trees on your behalf for taking part today, and 100 trees, Carla, for you for speaking at the event today. So thanks everyone for joining. We really appreciate your time and hope to see you at another webinar soon.